Hello, my name is Hayden Wayne. This is the Healing Channel. I humbly welcome you. You will witness philosophy, editorial, poetry, music, illustration, in my attempts to demonstrate the possibility for you to contemplate a path to higher consciousness. Thus, the process to unite us in a higher aspirational goal to not only heal ourselves and rid the foibles of the everyday onslaught of negative materialism, but heal our planet and truly expand ourselves within the integration of all that is possible within the total of cosmology itself. Yes, on a mundane material scale, I still need you to like, follow, and subscribe in order for me to raise additional revenues to raise my production values. Yes, everyone has a cross to bear. That is one of mine. But be that as it may, let's begin. And again, thank you for watching. We will become a sexless, orgasmicless world, unquote. George Orwell. Not on my watch. Societally anesthetized within a growing immoral vacuum, drowning from satanic ritual abuse, the devastation of innocence and wonder, a minor coerced through corrupt peer review, crimes of passion against humanity upon the naive, not allowed to self-evolve, those of self-loathing against the individual's right to his, her own conclusions, bullied by group nihilism, genital mutilation, ending the ability to perpetuate the race, disintegrating the future, soul by soul. No child can offer informed consent. A child's innocence and wonder are sacred. Our children are our future. What has been given to us is on loan from our children. As the Hopi say in prophecy, we have undermined our children. When the corruption is complete, the destruction is complete. So you want to cut your penis off and be a woman, though you have no eggs and cannot bear a child. It's just as well, for your hips are not wide enough for passage. And you A child who cut off your breasts before fully grown, no longer able to nourish your potential offspring, now farm your body to roll a section thereof into a penis that may be made into extended plumbing, but will never become erect or pass a seed. How men have been physically judged through time immemorial, demonstrating manhood, sexual prowess, cocksmanship, having balls, machismo, when ironically a true man is a secure male with the sensitivity of a slow hand. Your hips so wide will always give you away as a she, and you who choose to she yourself, your Adam's apple gives you away, as do your shoulders, your non-hourglass figure, unless you grow fat to hide your hips' display. And if so true your spirit, incongruous to the pod in which it resides, yes, agreed, a trick of fate. But aren't we all within the androgynous spectrum of totality? Blessed be they. Why deny ourselves such potential? By monochromatically narrowing our being into one sensuality, when we already had both to play with, regardless of what we physically are and how much of one or the other, of the who we are in which we choose to reside. All these screams of sexism and homophobia, when, in fact, those who parade up and down the streets in various levels of day-glow lawn furniture décolletage, accusing all around them of being phobic, are themselves the most phobic and insecure, with too many now invading the rights of minors to fortify their own base of subjective choice. What one does in privacy as an adult sexually is one's own business, an inalienable right of free expression. But when one crosses the line and soils the sanctity of innocence, specifically relating to sex, one earns the mantle pedophile, which is not only a crime against humanity, but a felony requiring said person's removal from society and imprisonment by the state. My first trans experience, I remember as a 7-year-old. I was a very precocious child during the Beat period, 1956. Walking along West 8th Street in Greenwich Village after leaving a bookstore where my parents had just bought me a hardcover of Herman Melville's Moby Dick. Very content with naked book in hand, I ventured through the crowded, bustling, weaving in and around and through the extraordinary energy of the evening, within my own state of awe, taking it all in some 10 or 20 feet in front of my folks. Suddenly my euphoric wonderment was interrupted. A noxious, pungent, perfumed body odor smell engulfed me. So startled, I turned around and blurted out, "What's that smell?" As two unusually tall individuals dressed as women charged past. Everything seemed to freeze at that moment. I caught a glimpse of a woman looking out through a small rectangular window of a bar, mouthing to my mother, "Were those men?" And my mother nodding, "Yes." I turned around, watching the parting sea of widened eyes and gaped expression, while the two in sequined dresses and high heels briskly walked away from us. I specifically remember how I was impacted by it all. Something seemed incongruous. There was no subsequent conversation. The rest of the evening's fare, I don't remember. However, my first trans encounter is as indelible still as when it first happened those 66 years ago. Yes, a woman can be many things, as well as for a man. Emotionally, that is. For biology is cut upon the stone of genetics, the X and Y chromosome, unless we are now going to supplant them with different pronouns as being done within the arena of sexuality and transgenderism. So to support an emotional rationale in order to affirm a subjective choice of being. Is transgenderism about the guilt of being gay? For now, you've aligned your body to house your emotional sensuality, sexuality, as opposed to proudly exuding your emotional state of being regardless of the body you were born into. Why would you do something so irretrievable? Why would you choose to become solely reliant on the pharmaceutical industry to administer your hormones, as opposed to your body naturally doing what it evolved to do? Why would one choose to so irrevocably injure themselves when self-confidently living out one's perspective, sensually and sexually, would seem a celebration in itself, not the self-loathing of self-mutilation? If a man loves to make love to men and be made love to by men, and a woman to and by women, why is there such a demonstrative need to surgically change one's physical appearance when biologically, no matter what you cut off and alternatively sew on, you're still genetically what you're trying to escape from? Obviously, there's another agenda. All the women and men I know, and those I've seen on the street who transdress or have had a sex change, are obvious to my eyes. Brandy Alexander, whom I worked with, and Charles Pierce were both brilliant, legendary female impersonators. They were both gay, relished being gay. They were in drag their entire professional careers. They didn't find it necessary to change their respective bodies. They were two men very much at rest within themselves. My son had a teacher who was a remarkably gifted artist. We were very fortunate to have him in the school where he so selflessly demonstrated his skills to all the children. He was a wonderful influence on my son, who we decided to pay an extra fee so to have him privately teach our son to paint after school once a week. It was a non-traumatic year of artistic nurturing. Came summer break, and upon my son's return, we parents learned this teacher had had a sex change. It surprised us and the staff because he never let on about his decision. He had taken a sabbatical leave to afford himself the healing process during the entire procedure. My wife and I wished him good health and a successful transition in an email. By the time of his return to teach, my son had left the school for higher education. I knew a man whose boyfriend transgendered. He proudly shared that she was the greatest muff diver. Does that mean that he who became a she is now a lesbian? Who he prided still loved taking it up the ass? Immediately I thought, well, if you like to do that, then why did you find it necessary to cut off your package and carve another hole between your legs? I've known a lot of women who like taking it up the ass. However, this is a discussion not about what one does in the privacy of their bed, but the emotional state in which we reside as individuals. Too much information, right? I agree. I'm from a generation where it is considered vulgar to openly, let alone publicly, talk this way. However, witnessing how far we have devolved our social skills during my lifetime, within this continuum of outing, that has geopolitically cut so deep into our social fabric, as well as destroying our educational system, where there is so much revisionism, where no one is allowed to question, let alone say anything that might offend someone, relegating the conversation to the lowest common denominator in the room, ultimately stifling any conversation. And now this unconscionable rationale to allow a child's sexual mutilation? This muff diving anecdote seems quite passive and au courant compared to the question of the moment and eternity. Why deny a child her own childhood innocence? The proof of this is in the pudding. A child molester is considered the lowest of the low within the penal system, and any individual entering with that dubious recognition is recognized as a short eyes. And if the warden doesn't separate this individual from the rest of the inmate population, he will be immediately offed. If a child says she wants to change her sex, where did she get the information from? Obviously, the environment. It's not about inner voices. The naivety of a child will most likely find her genitalia and have fun in the exploration, but not be philosophically evolved enough to decide one way or the other to change their body because their emotional proclivity is incongruent to their physicality. The cognitive ability, let alone experiential awareness, is simply not there unless an older teenager or adult has intervened. That said, I worked with a set designer who I asked, "When did you know you were gay?" He replied, "I don't think there was a time I wasn't gay. I remember sneaking into the guest room as a young child so I could stealthily pull back the sheet and look at the genitalia of my visiting teenage cousin." My working colleague was the warmest, sweetest soul and completely at rest within his sexual choice. I have a brilliant lawyer friend who, if you saw her walking up the street towards you, you would swear it was a man. I don't have to look into her pants to see if she has a dick. So emotionally true is her state of being. Her physicality exudes from every pore. She looks like a man. The way she walks, the way she sits, the manner in how she speaks, how she looks at other women. A sensitive man who dearly loves women, completely at rest, with a fabulous sense of humor, who obviously didn't need to add or subtract to her body so to be what she already is. With social media being the toxic cancer it is, anyone with less or no perspective compared to an adult who has lived long enough and had enough life experiences to be able to weigh the pros and cons of a situation. Young people today, by comparison, don't have a chance of retaining their God-given right of innocence and wonder. Their sway is clearly manipulated by bullying. The statistics already show an alarming spike in young girls around the age of 14 who are cutting themselves and committing suicide. If we allow this downward trend of accepted child abuse, these very individuals will soon enough become parents with lesser and lesser parental skill sets, ingrained with various trauma, devolving further progeny until the bottom drops out, and we are a psychotic, dysfunctional society which will inevitably eat itself by its own entrails. I don't know how to answer this. I don't know how, societally, we are to cut into this downward spiral that seems to be gaining speed at an alarming rate. No matter how reticent I am about one so dramatically altering their body's physiology, no matter how emotionally impulsive I may think this action, no matter how empathetically I would recommend a serious reevaluation of your choice and to give it more time to come to conclusion. If you are an adult, you have the unalienable right to do whatever you feel necessary. I guess I would have to say that about depressed individuals who are so overwhelmed, overwrought, they choose the right to kill themselves. As tragic as we would all concur. Let us not forget Portuguese neurologist Egas Moniz, who developed lobotomy on schizophrenic patients, was awarded the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 1945, unleashing the legitimization of this barbaric procedure, leading to a dramatic increase of lobotomies performed around the world. Between 1949 and 1952, around 50,000 lobotomies were performed in the United States. 10,000 procedures were transorbital, and the rest prefrontal lobotomies. Walter Freeman, traveling around in his Volkswagen bus, performed 3,500 lobotomies, of which 2,500 were done with an ice pick. 15% died from the procedure, and 19 were minors, including a 4-year-old child. He never wore surgical gloves or mask during these procedures. In 1951, he lost one patient while stopping to have his photograph taken, while the pick was still in the head of the patient. During his posing, it accidentally slid too far into the patient's brain. Advances in chemical alternatives slowly phased out lobotomies by 1952.